For today's painting, I'll be using my Frederick's Canvas Pad 12 by 16, and I'm going to use the white one. Remember, this is a sheet of actual canvas. It is not paper. It's just like a stretched canvas, except it comes in a pad like this. And I get a ton of questions about how to frame these. So if you find me on Instagram or Facebook, you can find a little video that I made where I demonstrate exactly how to frame one of these sheets of canvas. Now the first thing we're gonna do is lay in the sky. We'll do the clouds after that. And for the sky, I'm gonna use my 1-inch flat brush. I'm gonna wet it in the jar and wipe it off on the edge. And I'm going to use a little matte medium. I'm going to pull out some cad yellow medium and mix it with some white. Get a nice bright color. Now the colors that you use in your sky really don't matter. You know, sunsets have all kinds of colors in them. So use what colors you feel like a sunset would be and colors that make you happy. I'm going to decide where I want the brightest part to be, and I think I want it to be pretty low in the horizon, maybe right over here. So I'm just going to drop that yellow in, get it all the way to the edge. I don't have to worry about taking it all the way to the bottom of the canvas because we're going to have some ground there that's going to cover it. I'm just lightly bringing it up just so I don't have a hard line. Hard lines are harder to cover than soft lines. Maybe just a little bit more white, just right in here. Just lay it down and then super light pressure. See, my brush isn't even bending. Just dust it in. It's okay if it's got a little bit of some streaks to it. There we go. All right, now I've got some phthalo blue, and I'm using phthalo blue because it's quite a cool blue. It's got a lot of green to it, so if it mixes with the yellow a little bit, it will look nice. Whereas if the indanthrene mixes with the yellow, it might look a little more muddy. That, and I think that a sky always looks a little more vibrant when there's different hues of blue in there. So we'll take that, I'm gonna lay it down right above the yellow. And once I've got it all the way across there, then I can use the light pressure to just dust it into that yellow. Again, just break up that line so there's not a hard line there. And I'm going to get a little bit of matte medium, maybe just a little bit of white. Light pressure to get a bit of a blend there, see? And it doesn't have to be a perfect blend. If there's any streakiness between them, it's just going to help, you know, bring the illusion of clouds. A little more matte medium, super light pressure. If you're concerned with, you know, the possibility of getting a little bit of green in your sky and you really don't want that, I don't mind. But if you really don't want that, let the yellow dry completely and then use a little bit of matte medium in the blue, and that will help it look like it's blending into the yellow, even though it's really just kind of layered over it. There we go. Okay, I'm not going to clean off my brush. I'm going to go right into the indanthrene. Maybe just a little bit more white. I don't want it to get too dark just yet. And again, I'm going to lay it down above this color. Heavy pressure to lay down that paint. And then up on the tippy toe to blend it in. There we go. Pull that down so that we can get rid of the line between the two colors. And again, it's creating a little bit of streaking, and I like that. Now I think think as we get up to the corners, I'm gonna add a little bit of Payne's Gray into my indenthrine. So, I'm gonna get my indenthrine, nice and dark. A little bit of Payne's Gray just to darken it a bit more. I'm going to start up here where I want it the darkest. Just really lay that color in. Keep that soft at the bottom so that it's easier to blend when we get to that part. Same, just a little point of white. Heavy pressure to lay paint down, remember? Light pressure to blend it and smooth it. Right here, this blue is starting to dry a little. So I'm just going to pick up a little bit of matte medium. And that's where you get that look like it's blended, even though it's really not. It's just layered over top of it. I would say at this point, don't be too overly concerned with streaks and brush marks because, you know, we're gonna layer some clouds over top of this. So there's no real reason to, you know, panic about brush marks. If you have something that you just can't get out easily, you know, if I go like this once or twice and it doesn't come off, then I'm just gonna leave it. Because if I keep at it, I keep trying to remove it, I may end up lifting paint off of my canvas, and I don't wanna do that. I can always cover it up with another cloud later. All right, so there is our base color for our sky. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let this dry completely. I'm even gonna get out my blow dryer, make sure it's very, very dry before we move on to the next part. All right, this is all dry now and we can start laying in our clouds. And to do that, I'm actually gonna use my 5/8 inch filbert. So I did wet this in my jar a little and then I just wiped it on a paper towel a bit. And I've got quinacridone next to my Payne's Gray because I'm gonna get a good dark shadow color. And quinacridone mixed with Payne's Gray gives this really lovely dark purpley color. It's a little warmer than Diox. Diox is quite blue, but you could use Diox purple if you like. I'm gonna use some matte medium so I get a nice transparent look, but if you don't have matte medium, you can definitely try and do this without it. I'm gonna start by laying my brush on the edge. See that kind of little line? I'm not laying it flat, I'm just kind of nudging the color around, mostly with just the edge of the brush, though it may roll to the flat part here and there. Light pressure, just laid down some of that paint and then I'm just breaking it up. Little matte medium because I still have paint on my brush and I'm gonna lay that down there. And same thing, I know right here where it's very dark, it's kind of hard to see. Little matte medium. So I don't have a ton of paint. See, there's no globs. My brush is very smooth. And then some matte medium. And right over here on the side, we'll do some more. So my brush is on the angle or on the edge. Just kind of nudge it in some circles, wherever it is that I want it. Very light pressure. And start pulling it outward from that area. don't want to take any more dark down there, so I'm going to leave that hard line for just a minute. Just get some of this off of my brush. I'm not really trying for any specific cloud shapes, but I want to avoid canvas texture, and that's where the matte medium comes in super helpful. See that? Just a little matte medium and very light pressure. And it just smears that paint enough to soften that canvas texture. You could probably use just a little extra water, but I would be careful with that because that can also make it easier to lift your paint off of the canvas. Just nudging that texture out. Just gonna keep going with my Payne's Gray and quinacridone mixture. And let's make it nice and heavy here, just laying that color on, pretty much covering all of that blue. A little matte medium, or a lot of matte medium, to kind of swipe it out, soften it, make it more transparent. The transparency is what's really going to help sell these wispy glowing clouds. Just a little back and forth there. If you get, again, just like on the background, any lines that really are fighting you, just leave them. Your next layer will cover it. Let's darken this a bit right up in here. And this is all just really the base layer for part of my clouds. I'm going to put brighter colors over this. Whoop. Getting a little crazy with the matte medium there and dripping it all over the place. That's okay. Actually, I think I'm going to pull just a little more quinacridone into that. Let's lighten it just a little bit. Some matte medium, nice and transparent. I'll get a bit of that down in here where the sky is a little bit lighter, so I don't feel like I'd have those heavy, heavy dark shadows. See how the matte medium makes it look like it's blending into that lighter color, even though it's not. So I hear once in a while from people say that their matte medium is sticky. And I think if your matte medium is sticky, in my experience, what's happening is you're overworking it. As it dries, you know, it's gonna get a little bit tacky. And if you keep trying to work it and move it as it's getting drier, it might feel a little bit sticky. So, I picked up some blue there, I don't wanna do that. So just don't overwork your medium. There we go. Let's get a little bit more of this dark color and then we're going to move on from it. put just a bit of it up in here. Just lightly, almost just kind of glazing. Okay, I'm gonna get my dryer out again, and I'm gonna make sure that this is dry before we move on. Okay, now real quick before we move on, I wanna point out a couple of areas that if you have areas like this on your canvas, you may perceive them as being problem areas that need immediate attention. And that really for me is kind of right in this area. So see how messy and yucky that is? If you have an area like this on your canvas, I want you to absolutely not worry about it. Ignore it. Don't try to change it. Don't try to fix it. You're just gonna ruin it, make it muddy, and make it worse. Do not worry about anything that looks like that. Just leave it for now. Trust me. All right, so this is dry now. I'm sticking with my 5/8 inch filbert. And right now I'm just gonna get quinacridone. Now the quinacridone is a very transparent color. So up in these darker areas, it's not gonna show off quite so much, and it's not gonna be real vibrant where it does show. But later on, we will take care of that. So this is just quinacridone, no matte medium. Doesn't need it, it's already transparent. I'm just gonna start laying it in there. I know that looks really intense right now. It is not going to dry that intense. I'm just lightly nudging it up into here. And then I'll smear that a little with my finger. Maybe I'll have to use some matte medium there. Just a little bit. There we go. Let's keep going with that. That is starting to really build a nice glow. We'll get some up here. A little matte medium, lay it down there. I like how smooth the blend is when I just kind of lightly use my finger to blend it out. Especially down here at the bottom. Nice and bright there. Start really dragging that out here. Some matte medium, almost kind of glaze this area. That's really starting to look like what I'm going for. I don't really have an image that I'm working off of. You know, if you go on to places like Pixabay, you can find so many images of sunsets and, you know, any color, any shape, any amount of cloudiness you could want. So what I did was I just kind of went through there and I found some that I really liked, and you know, kind of took little bits from each one. Like I like the colors on this one, or I like the shape on this one, and then from there just kind of planned out my colors, and I'm kind of building the composition of it as I go. The only thing I was pretty certain of composition wise is that I wanted the bright yellow down to this area. But other than that, I'm really just kind of making this up as I go. Maybe just a little bit more of that bright quinacridone right in there. Kind of doing that little bounce thing. So it's like lay it down and kind of dabbing like that. That's about what I'm doing there. And I think that's good for the quinacridone. Let's start pulling just a hint of yellow into it. Now, I don't want to use white because the white is going to give me a very pink color, and I don't want a very pink color. I want to keep my quinacridone vibrant, but I also want to make it a little more opaque. And cadmium yellow is quite opaque, and look how vibrant that still is, but it's it's going to be much less transparent now. So now I'm going to come in here and start kind of introducing some of that. Maybe these are different clouds. These don't have to be like the highlights to these other clouds. So maybe they're shaped different. They move in different directions. Still just using the side of my filbert. And see how loosely I'm holding my brush. That helps me so that I don't get these really stiff shapes. See, they're quite scattered, barely touching the canvas, and just nudging. I will nudge a bit up into here. Making sure to keep some matte medium on there so that I can keep a hint of transparency. I don't like that bit. So there, see how easy it is to cover something you don't like? That's why I said, don't worry about it. Don't try to correct anything. A little more yellow in there. And let's keep going. And again, here's that spot that I didn't like. And even if I don't cover it completely, it's going to cover it enough to just kind of break it up so that you're not looking at it. You're not looking at it going, I wonder what's happening right there. Why does that spot look like that? See how light I'm touching? Just barely. Barely, barely, barely. Let's get a hint of that right up in here. Just found a little spot on my brush where the yellow wasn't mixed in totally. So I got some unexpected bright points there, and I'm okay with that. I like how, you know, as you continue painting, the way you do things changes. Like these clouds look so different from, you know, clouds that I used to do. And that's just part of the nature of being an artist, you know. Things change. The way you interpret techniques or the way you interpret visual elements, all of that is going to change as you go. And that means that you will change as you go. And I think that's really exciting. I like that. Still barely touching. I have a lot of paint on my brush. Don't mistake the fact that very little paint is coming off for thinking that my brush doesn't have very much paint on it. This brush is loaded. That's how little pressure I'm putting there, that you're just barely seeing any of that color. Let's get a little bit more yellow, a little bit more matte medium. I'm mixing over here in the yellow now because I want this color to be quite bright. And I'm going to lighten it up right down in here. And I'm really starting to kind of cover that area that I didn't like. There's still a hint of it showing. I'm not obliterating it. See that? Little bits of yellow up in here. More matte medium. I'm really just making what's on my brush very, very transparent. See how transparent that is? And I'm gonna lightly glaze right here. There we go, I like that. And there I washed off my brush because I actually want more of a pure yellow, but very, very transparent, just like I was doing. Lots of matte medium. Just little blops of that super transparent yellow, and then I'm dotting it out. Okay, I'm gonna take a break from this, let some of these layers dry, and kind of give myself a visual break from it. And then I'll come back in a few minutes and see how I wanna change the sky. I don't feel like the sky is done, but I need just a minute away from it to decide. Okay, this is dry, and I think I've decided that I wanna add a little bit of some brighter pink into these darker areas. So I have my matte medium. I'm gonna get a little bit of that. A little bit of white. My white's kind of drying out. And I'll mix it in with some quinacridone. Just get a bit of a brighter color. Not necessarily, you know, pale. I don't want it to get overly pink, but this will help it to stand out just a little bit more. So let's kind of test that there. That's not too bad. I know that ultimately I do want these orangey clouds on top. And I know I just put that pink over top of it, but I can go back and put the orange back on afterwards. So right now I'm just gonna focus on the pink that I want in there, that little bit of pink. And that little bit of matte medium is what's kind of making it transparent there. Let's even just glaze bits of this pink into a couple of the areas off of there. Just a little bit of a foggy look to some of that. Just kind of scattering it. Remember that, especially if you're using matte medium, the color is going to look a little bit more intense until it dries. So if you're looking at it and you're like, oh, that's too bright right there, unless it's really, really bright, let it dry and then decide. So let me show you what I mean. So right there, that looks pretty bright. But as it dries, I don't think it will be quite that intense. Just keep playing with the values and find little highlights in there. Make sure you look at it at a distance, because that will really help you kind of decide where you like some highlights. And, you know, standing up close to it like this, it's hard to get a feel for that. But when I stand back, I really like this spot here. So I'm going to make sure to leave that. Maybe intensify that just a little bit right there. I like a hint of it right in here. That's pretty pale. A little matte medium. There we go. Just get rid of the hard lines in it, and I think the color will be fine as it dries. It will deepen just a little bit. It won't be quite so bright. And even if it is, that's okay. because another trick is, since quinacridone is so transparent, that if you really don't like how pale that color is, once it's completely dry, just take a little bit of solid quinacridone and just very lightly put it over top of it, and that will brighten it, but also kind of mute it a little bit so it's not quite so intense. In fact, I'm going to get just a little bit of a deeper, more quinacridone color. Just playing with the colors a little bit. A little bit of that paler color, just right there at the base. Those clouds feel a little more distant to me, so just a hint of it in there. I really like that. These little, almost like these little lines of color. I feel like very streaky, very distant clouds. It's just the very tip of the brush. There we go. One more little bit lighter in just a couple of spots, and then I think I'm going to move on from the pink. There. Just a hint of a glaze of that color. I know that doesn't look like a hint. There we go. Okay, I actually really like that, so I think I'm going to move on from these pink colors. Let's work on our yellowy orange colors. Again, they're the ones that are a little bit closer to us. So our cad yellow, our quinacridone. Just warming up that quinacridone, not getting like a solid orange color. I do want this color to be pretty transparent though. And I'm gonna come in here and I'm really gonna kind of glaze. I'm gonna end up getting rid of quite a bit of that I already did, and that's okay. It's pretty transparent, so a lot of it's staying. We can come up and take it over top of any of this. I'm picturing these clouds are not connected. These are a little bit lower than those other ones. These are taking a little bit more of that direct sunlight. A little more yellow. Really a glowy color. Just trying out different mixtures of the yellow and quinacridone with different amounts of this yellow. Nice and transparent here. And smooth it in. All right, let's just brighten up some of the highlight points, and then maybe we'll be about done with the sky. I like the yellow and the orange with the purple. It feels, I don't know, it feels kind of magic to me. I like seeing all the, you know, the different colors like that in the sky. More yellow, just mixing straight into there. Maybe we should get just a little bit of white in that yellow too. Just a little poke of white, my dried out white. Okay, I think let's give the sky a break. Let's stick with our 5/8 inch filbert just because it's already in my hand. And I have black, and we're gonna start doing the ground. I'm gonna work kind of loose because I want this to be a little bit of a rocky area. Maybe there's some, you know, weeds and sagebrush, and I definitely want cactus. So we'll just kind of start like that and then fill that all in. It's easier to use a firmer brush for this part, but I'm committed to the action, so I'm going to see it through with my soft brush. Just trying to make sure all those little bits are filled in. There we go. All right, I think that's a good place to start. And I'm going to go to my number 10 round brush, and I did wet it in the jar. Let's start laying in a cactus, and I kind of feel like I want one right about in this area. So let's kind of start it right about here. Just bring it relatively straight down. Doesn't have to be perfectly straight. And we've got our little cactus arms that kind of come out and up. I'm pretty sure they're not called cactus arms, but I'm calling them cactus arms. I think I'm going to widen this out a little bit. There we go. And there's another one over here. Make them each different, you know, start at different heights. Maybe they end on the cactus in a little bit of a different place, different widths. Maybe there's a smaller one in the distance here. Cactus is pretty simple shape. Some little bushes or something here. Some little like sketchy stuff, just little scribbly bits. It could be sagebrush, it could be, you know, anything. Little pokey stick things. Who knows? I know if you've never really been to the desert, you might think there's nothing that grows there. I mean, certainly there's deserts where there's nothing that grows. But having grown up in the desert, I can tell you that there's all kinds of plants that grow. In fact, I'm going to experiment. I have my fan brush. I just barely dipped the top half of it into the water so it's not soaking wet. And I'm going to load the top half of it with some black. I'm going to do like I'm going to experiment and see if I can do like a little sagebrush type look here. So I'm just going to take the top of the fan brush and kind of not too bad. Use the corner of it. Just kind of mush the corner in a bit. Some different types of plants in there. That's not too bad. You're certainly not going to have anything leafy and, you know, full and green, but you definitely have these little spiky things. There, that one looks like a sagebrush. So to get that little sagebrush look, I'm kind of hitting the corner like that, and then kind of in a half circle. So let's see, let's do one maybe, okay, let's do one right here. I don't really like that little cactus, so I'm going to hit the corner of the brush like that, and then just kind of come up and around. There. Yeah, I like that. Just little hints of stuff back there. Let's go into our yellow and mix it with some indanthrene. Get a nice deep, dark green. Maybe let's put a little bit of a highlight on at least our main cactus, the one closest to us. And remembering that our light source is coming from over here. This is where it's the brightest. So I'm going to keep this color on the side of the cactus that's facing that light source. Just kind of sketch it on there. A little bit on this little piece in the back. You probably can't see that real well just yet, but that's okay, you will. Let's go a little bit lighter, a little bit more yellow in there. I think I'm going to mix up a little bit more paint too. I was using kind of a thin amount of paint there. There we go. Just kind of dash it on there. Just a little sketchy. The cactuses kind of have those lines in them. Let's go just one more lighter, just a little more yellow. Very little of this color. Maybe we'll just put the faintest touch back here. And we can put little bits of it. Let's change the color a little bit though. I'm gonna do, let's see, we'll throw some Payne's gray in there just because it changes it a little. So the yellow, some Payne's gray. There, see now it's a bit more drab. Let's come in here just with the tip of the brush and lightly. This black is still wet at the bottom, so that's kind of cool. It's helping the indication of the color be a little bit softer, blends it a bit more. You can say there's little bits of plants or something right in here. Throw a little more yellow in there, just brighten it up a little for a couple of parts. I hadn't planned on doing all of this, but now there's something else I want to do. I'm going to take that green yellow color I was using, and I'm going to make a brown. So I'm going to get a little bit of quinacridone, mix it in there. It's still a little green, so let's throw a little more in. There we go. Kind of a sandstone type color. I like that. So I'm going to come in here and just indicate some like little sandstone rocks or something, little red rocks like we have in the desert here in Utah. Mostly these kind of rocks, they're southern. We don't really have so much of this up north here where I live, but I'm not doing a lot on the other side because our sunlight is kind of shining this way. Just dashes of that color. Just a suggestion of it really throughout most of this. Then we can brighten it up a little. I think I'm going to throw just the tiniest hint of white in there. Might need some more yellow. Just adding little bits of more white in there. Then I think I'm about done. I'm going to put just the smallest indication of that light over here, just so it's not pure black. It's a little bright, so I'm just going to mix some Payne's gray into it. I don't want this color to show up very much. There we go. Just a little bit of Payne's gray to smoke that out. Much better. I'm really liking this, but just when I think, yeah, I like it really dark like that, then I stand back and look at it and I think, oh no, I want to see all of that just a little bit more. At least right here. Darken this bit. I'm going to go to my number 2 round. I'm going to mix up a brighter version of that green to really pop the cactus. You know, I started out wanting this whole thing to be silhouette, and then I decided, oh, maybe just a little bit of a highlight. And the more highlight I put in there, the more I think I need just a little bit more. I really want to make it pop. There we go. Some nice bright bits in here. Maybe a couple of bright bits here. Just right up at the top edge. Oh, I didn't realize that black was still that wet. Just kind of dotting it to the top edge. Then I cleaned off my brush. Let's get some more of this color. I'm going to make it very, very light with the white. Wet it down a little with some water so it'll flow nicely. And we'll just kind of get a few little sticks in here. This kind of help us say that these little sagebrush bits have a little bit of life to them. Maybe we've got a few of those little sticks over here.